Hey everybody, welcome back to Engaging the Phenomenon. And today we have returning on our friend and colleague, Andrew Radziewicz. Am I saying that right, Andrew?
Perfect, perfect.
Okay, I always joke, I always called you Andrew Raz, short and easy. Uh, so Andrew, I met personally back in 2011 for the first time at a CSETI expedition with Dr. Stephen Greer. It was for one of his week-long CE-5 trainings. But subsequently, we met many times after at a monthly CE-5 event over here in New York. But Andrew has a very interesting background and very appropriate to the current conversation around psionics, although, for many years we were not using that term. It was just considered CE5 contact modalities, and in his case, psychic and psychic phenomenon. As you can see in his background, it says psychic firefighter, right? So Andrew has a background as a New York City firefighter in the FDNY, but he also has a few years in service, and he actually had an experience during his service. So, Andrew, just for people who might be seeing you for the first time, why don't you just give a little background of yourself, and
Sure.
then we'll go from there.
Cool. So basically, I grew up in Long Island, New York, in a place called Floral Park. Any typical 18, 19-year-old kid, you don't know if you want to go to college or go in the military or do something. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to work. I don't really want to go to school, but I want to do something fun, different. So I went into the Coast Guard and I was stationed in St. Petersburg, Florida. And one night we were down in our patrol area is basically the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean. So from Florida and then south of there. So this is going back to 1999, way before the internet, way before YouTube, all this stuff going on. People weren't carrying iPhones or cameras on them all the time. It was totally different then. So I was the lone night watchman on a boat. There was 72 sailors on the boat. And while we were down there, I was on top of the boat, and my job was to scan the perimeter of the boat with these giant old-fashioned binoculars. Literally, I was wearing a pair around my neck, and then we had this giant pair on like a spindle. And you'd look around every 10 minutes, just scan the boat. And then we had probably first generation night vision goggles, which I had never seen before till I was in the Coast Guard. And you'd scan the sky, up, down, everything. And like I said, I'm up there. It's after midnight. I'm scanning the sky, and you're supposed to report anything that you see. And I see an object moving. I see a round illuminated object. So basically like a golden ball. And then I see another one just slightly behind it. And they're moving in formation. It appears. It appears that as one moves, the other one's just slightly behind it. So I just call down to the officer on duty just to let him know. Officer on duty comes up. I'm not thinking aliens. I'm not thinking anything like that at the time. I'm thinking this is explainable. This has got to be something. So the officer comes up and he relays that they're not picking anything up on their radar, which is basically impossible from what I understand. They're like, no, this doesn't make sense. We should be able to pick up something, that something is there. And if anything, whether it's a craft, a boat, anyone that's in some sort of vehicle, if they pass by the front or the back of a vessel, a Coast Guard vessel, they're supposed to notify us. So we're not getting any sort of notification. Nothing's going on. Next thing I know, there's about 20 of us that are up there. So people are looking. They wake up the captain of the boat. He's up there. All these people are looking, passing around old school binoculars, night vision goggles, and these two objects just keep moving. And then all of a sudden, approximately 10, 15 minutes later, it's hard to tell exactly how long. I wasn't checking my watch every minute because I didn't want to lose sight of this. I was just like, I don't know what this is, but this is really cool. The two objects come together and they merge into one and they don't take off. No trace, no trail, no drop into the water. They're just gone. Just completely gone. No sound, nothing. And I remember looking at the guy next to me and I'm like, oh my God. And he looks at me like, oh, wow, wow. We were talking, wow, this is crazy. Couple of guys on the boat, they had had time. They had had like, 15 years out at sea. So they were like, you're gonna see things, kid. Relax. You know what I mean? But that was my first thing though. I'm 19. I'm like, oh my God. And then I remember the next morning I woke up. because this happened after midnight. This around like 1, 2 in the morning, late, late. So, not all the boat is up, but I couldn't wait for the morning for roll call because I'm like, I'm going to tell everyone, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like so green, right? So green. And like I said, I wasn't reading UFO books. I wasn't thinking, anything like that going into this, or the aliens are going to come or nothing like that. I was just like, I don't know, I saw something. So in the morning, no debriefing, no talk, no nothing, no brought in a room. I wasn't shook down. I was never told don't talk about this, nothing like that at all. And that is why I shared this. And even since the last time I came on your podcast, it's been really cool because I had a guy reach out to me that I was on the boat with. Okay, so
Oh,
people always
wow.
say, where are the witnesses? Right? Where are the witnesses? And I will say, this is 1999. So right now, 2025, some guys are still active duty. So they're not going to come forward and say, "Hey, I saw." No way, they're not going to do that. And I would never ever say who I was with unless they want to come share this story. I'm all ears, man, but I would never share their name. However, I was contacted by a guy because maybe he heard our show or heard me on some podcast, and he said, "Bro, I was on the boat with you, okay? I was there that night, and I could tell you this. After that, I got promoted, went up the ranks basically." He goes, and I went to several duty stations in South Florida, Virginia, New York. This is my buddy telling me this. And he said, everywhere I've gone, I have seen craft. He goes, and I even had seen them growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, why didn't you tell me this like 10 years ago? You know what I mean? Oh my
Yeah.
God. Because it's so hard to find other people that will even talk about this. So that's just something interesting that's happened lately. And I said to him, I go, anytime you're ready, bro, you want to come, we'll get you on YouTube or talk, or it's totally up to you. He said he wants to talk about it, but I reached out to him once. I said, listen, whenever you're ready, you just let me know. I know you got a family, you're retired now. He's retired now. So he's like, hey,
Yeah.
maybe I'll come out, but that's just something interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It's always interesting to hear. Yeah, again, a lot of people they'll come out after the fact or when somebody else comes forward first, kind of thing. And I understand that. Even for me, it took years to really come out. Even when I was actively involved in the CE-5 initiative, right? I still wasn't talking about my earlier experiences with them as much because a few people knew, but I didn't want to give people like expectations of this can happen or anything. Because even people open to CE5 and psionics say, when if they're watching a video on YouTube, it's kind of like one thing. They can kind of entertain it. But when it's somebody is talking to you, it becomes personal and it becomes real. And now they have to face it as a reality rather than something that's like out there, right? Some like an idea. It becomes like it's real, right? And so I completely understand that. Now this is interesting for me to ask you because like I'm trying to think, and maybe you told me and I forgot, yeah, because I'm don't have the best memory. But so you had that experience 1999. I met you 2011. What happened in the time in between, and how did you end up at that training with Dr. Stephen Greer in 2011?
So 99 happens, and at the time, like I said, I'm in the Coast Guard. My father was a New York City firefighter. I come from a family of New York City firefighters since the 1950s, and 9/11 happens. So obviously, life changes, oh my God, craziness, all these things going down. Uh, just after that, I was working as an electrician in Long Island. So when it was time for me to finish up with the Coast Guard, I found a guy who was in the Coast Guard prior who opened his own electrical business in Long Island. And he goes, Andrew, I'll get you a job, man. In a second, I'll get you in the union. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
So I'm, yeah, 21 years old, a kid, whatever. Okay, cool. So I get out and I get a job with the guy and I'm working as an electrician. And in between, I'm not, online much. I don't even remember back then, early 2000s, what was going on there, but I wasn't much of a computer guy. I know that. I was just working. And then on my days off, working on the weekends, just work,
Yeah.
work, work, saving, saving, saving,
Yeah.
waiting to get on the fire department. So in 2006, I got on the FDNY. After I saw the two planes hit the World Trade Center on 9/11, my first thought was, I wish I was in there helping. That's just what I thought because I'm
Yeah.
like, I wish I was in there. And the day everyone asked me this, people want to know this, people listen to the show. What happened on that day? Where was I? So when 9/11 happened, I was in the Hamptons working as an electrician. My father was there at the World Trade Center working. Now,
Oh my God.
luckily, he made it out, luckily. So my dad's company, okay, he was working at the firehouse in Brooklyn. They get a report that a plane hit the Trade Center. They go to the roof of the firehouse. They're watching the World Trade Center. They're looking at it from the roof of the firehouse in Bed-Stuy, and they see the second plane hit. They hop on the truck. They're driving to the Trade Center. They get to the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, and they're told you can't take the truck through. And they're like, "What?" They're like, "There's bomb threats." So they grab their gear, right? All this stuff they're going through. In my dad's house, there was a ladder company. My dad was in the ladder, 102, engine 209. Engine 209, the company next to my dad, they're in the same house, but the engine. So they get there, right? They're walking down the block, and a guy jumps out of a window from the World Trade Center and hits a fireman named Danny Sir. People could look this story up. Suhr, Danny Sir from Engine 216. He gets hit by some civilian. The guys from my dad's house, they're trying to revive the guy that gets hit, Danny Sir. They're trying to work on him. As they're trying to revive and help him, the first tower falls.
Wow.
So Danny Sir saved the life of half the guys that my dad works with and more because they were working on him. If
Yeah.
that didn't happen, they would have been in the trade center. They would have all got killed. So,
And there was I don't want to say his name. I think he's publicly talking about the story, but there's another, there's a famous UFO researcher. His dad was a retired cop, a retired police officer, and his retirement job, he was a fire safety director in the World Trade Center, and he called out that day. He and all the
wow.
fire safety directors in the World Trade Center died. It was just but it's like why, just again, just a story like yours is like if that didn't happen, they would have went over there and
Yeah. Yeah, and my dad drove. He was the chauffeur of the truck, and he used to ride every morning till 9 on the dot. He was old fashioned. That morning, for some reason, about 20 to 9, a guy comes in and goes, Richie, let me drive, man. Just go home. And he's like, all right, fine. He's like, I'm gonna hang out, but you could drive. So another guy was driving, and when they first got to that battery tunnel, they were told to stop, because it was the bomb threats. And my dad said, he goes, we talked about it later. He goes, if I was still driving, like he hopped on the back of the truck with the guys. My dad said if he was still driving that morning, he would have drove through the barricades. He said, and if I drove through the barricades right through there right away, he goes, we would have been in there. We all
yeah,
would have got killed. Like definitely. So he's like, right, like you're all gung ho and you want to do right, and he's like, no one thought that was going to happen. So the aftermath of that, the trauma, the drama, like craziness. And I just remember I want to do that. I wish I was there. So I trained and I got 100 on the written, 100 on the physical.
wow,
Still had to wait 6 years.
yeah, of
I had to
course,
wait 6 years. So
yeah,
from 9/11 until April of 2006, I had to wait 5, 6 years, whatever. I'm waiting, 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 working as an electrician, training, 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 waiting. It may happen, it may not. Who knows, right? You never know. Life happens sometimes. They call me. My list number was 2,202, and I got 100. So I don't know, whatever. But
yeah,
there was thousands of people that took the test. So I get on. I'm working for about 4 or 5 years, not doing CE-5, nothing, nothing like that, just working as a fireman. And then around 2010, I heard of Greer, and then someone passed me the video, or I found it on YouTube, whatever, about the National Press Club.
yeah,
I somehow came across it, and I go, I need to meet these witnesses because I saw something in the Coast Guard, and maybe some guy saw something. You know what I mean? That's all I was thinking. And then I'm like, all right, wait, this guy has retreats or whatever. And so my partner at the time was open to doing that. So I was like, I'm not gonna go alone. Like I didn't know anyone else, but we're both open to it. So we're like, all right, let's go. So we had to read all his books, like Bibles.
yeah,
So I'm speed reading and I don't know what I'm reading. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, consciousness and all, like, same thing. I'm a fireman. I am not going on yoga retreats. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
okay, whatever. I can kind of piece this together. And I'm like trying CE-5 at home. And I'm like, I just need to go to the source. Like I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? That's just at first. So I got the money together, whatever, worked some overtime, I don't care. And we went out there, and that's where I remember when I met you. So I met you in 2011, but even when I met you then, I did not tell anyone in the group what I saw in 1999. I didn't tell you that, and I didn't tell anyone in the group because at that time I was a fireman. I didn't want anyone knowing. I just wanted to go, meet a few witnesses, maybe talk a little, and I did not think I'd be able to make these things appear or whatever was going on. So that was kind of like, hey, if it happens, whatever. But then I remember signing the waiver with Greer, like, there's no guarantee anything's gonna happen. So I'm like, well, we'll see. If this guy's full of it, I'll tell everyone. And if he's not, I will share the truth. And that was a life-changing experience going to his retreat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, for me, when I went to the retreat, I that was actually the second one I went to. I went to one a year before, but it was a 3 day conference slash CE5 training. It was 2010 Rio Rico, Arizona,
Wow.
and you know, like you said, he says, before you come on the training, read the books, like know the stuff, so he doesn't have to explain all the stuff that's in there already. Because at that point, 2011, he's been doing it for like 30 years, pretty much, Oh, no, 20 something years.
Yeah, it's the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so that, by the time I had even gotten to the first one, I was already, because I had the several, kind of in your face contact experiences. So I was doing the CE5 like day in, day out. I was, so it was great to get the validation. And when, same thing, right? When I first came across Stephen Greer, I came across the press club conference and I'm like, how the hell did this event happen in Washington, D.C. with all these like super credible witnesses? And I didn't hear about it, number one. And number two, who the hell is this freaking doctor, right? He's not one of the military guys. He's just like this random, very well articulated doctor, right? And so I started researching into that. And then when I came across the CSETI stuff, because I started like, who is this doctor, right? He's talking about UFOs and like, why is he the one leading this conference or whatever when, there's all these military people there? And when I saw his videos talking about contact, the thing that struck me is like that the way he was describing contact was exactly how I had experienced it. And so I wanted to to go out and vet him further because it's to me I already had the impression, well, that that kind of nuanced knowledge of contact, like the little like just telltales of like somebody who had experienced it firsthand already, rather than explaining contact superficially or what you might even read in like a book or a movie or something. Uh, so those events, both the 2010 and the 2011 events were both very genuine anomalous experiences occurred. So that only further validated uh, what Stephen Greer was talking about in regards to CE5 and psionics. Subsequently, you and I had gone up to upstate New York at Maryland's,
Yep.
at
Oh
Maryland's,
yeah.
and I mean, beautiful property, beautiful people, and uh, we had some really great. They would host a monthly global CE5, and we'd meet, about once a month, and we get there when we can get there, and a lot of really great um, contact work. And the one of the interesting things about Maryland's, and I think this is the case for all CE5 groups, especially who are dedicated and go out regularly. What we were doing up there was not like the CE5 protocols per se, right? I mean,
Right.
more or less there is CE5 and then there's the CE5 protocols. For people listening, just to clarify, CE5 itself is human initiated contact with non-human intelligence, or as Dr. Stephen Greer would say, extraterrestrial intelligence. But, more or less non-human intelligence advanced, either physical or non-physical. And, you do the CE-5 protocols and have the interactions. Stephen Greer has his specific protocols, which are called the CE-5 protocols. But CE5 as a whole is not limited to just those protocols. So what we were doing up there was not, I mean, at the very beginning, we were, I guess, we're following more of the C5 protocol, but it morphed
Yeah.
into something completely different over time. And I mean, you couldn't look at it and say, those are the C5 protocols. And what we were doing way different practices and contact modalities that were super effective, right? And
Yes.
I think some of what was so effective is that they really, Marilyn and Diane were really great at bringing the group together and building group coherence. And that's something that is one of the most important aspects of doing group CE5 work. Um, so is there anything that you want to share about Marilyn's group or our times up there in upstate New York?
Oh yeah. So yeah, anyone listening too, like, if you go meet Dr. Gray, he's gonna of course show you the exact way he does it. He's gonna tell you what to eat before you come out. Like, he is ba 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 ba, which I love that. I think that was great, and that's how I first did it, and awesome. Now, when you leave there and you go back to reality, and you're working in the firehouse and you're eating cheeseburgers and fries, you know what I mean? Like that's reality for me. Not eating a green dot, like you know what I mean? Whatever. One of the guys. It is what it is. So at night, I'm still going to go make contact because if I ate a burger in the day, doesn't mean they're not going to come. No. However, if you do certain things, you might find that you're more prone to having a better experience. And that's a foundation. You meet Greer, that's your foundation. If you want to branch out from that and, bring one of those bowls in that you hit or a gong or whatever you want to do. You could bring lasers, you could bring all these tools. You don't need any of that. I mean, when I go outside at night, I don't use anything. I
Yeah,
just sit there
yeah,
and I just sit quiet and that's it. Nothing wild, nothing crazy. People can get, very advanced with it and whatever experiment, which I think is great. I think that's part of the process. I have a system that works for me. I take little bits of everything that I've learned over the years. I really like the group aspect at Maryland's. It was a tight group. I have brought my wife there. I have brought my parents there. I have brought my brother there. I have brought neighbors there. Seriously, over the years of it, over a decade, and the people I met at Greer's conference, meditation, C5 for the week, and then even at Maryland's, I still speak with those people today. So that's incredible. I've met a lot of people in my life, but the people I met at the retreat and at Maryland's, just like you and I, we still talk. We're still together. We still get together. We still talk about this stuff. Why? Because it's effective, it works, and for me personally, it has changed my life for the better. It has improved upon my life. If I never got involved with that stuff, yeah, I'd probably still be happy as a firefighter doing whatever. But for me, these experiences and the things that I went through with, Marilyn's house in particular, opened up something in my life. For example, I notice if I've gone through traumatic things in life, so losing people, right? 9/11, and even being a fireman after that, if I've lost guys that I work with, people would die at fires, people personally. I know if I've gone up to the group after and I've done a group CE5 together, I've had some of those incredible contact experiences of my life after. Something about trauma and then doing CE5 after. I don't know what it is, but there's some sort of connection that I've had these incredible experiences after I lose someone for some reason. I don't know if that's something you've ever gone through, but I've talked to a lot of people all over the world. After somebody dies, they see an orb going through the house, or they intently, you do a CE5, you try to, stimulate this, and you have some sort of phenomenal experience after. Have you ever gone through something like that?
yeah. They say. I mean, there's been people who've written about it. I mean, personally, for me, I think my own thought on that is that, when you're dealing with trauma, it, part of coping with that trauma is like, when something like that happens, your mind is like can become uh there's two things, like you're either your mind can just like think about it, think about it, think about it. So you're trying to like shut that down a little bit, right? And that so in distancing yourself, from your thinking mind, there's like that disassociation factor that is like mm, shutting it's like shutting down the mind, so to speak, a little. But there's also something to be said about highly charged uh, emotions, right? Like very deep and powerful emotions, I think have a greater effect beyond our physical world, the way we think about it. Whether that be a super, I mean, like I'm sure many people have experienced this, right? And you can say a coincidence, right? Is like something happens and either like you're extremely sad or even like you're really angry, right? Like just a very powerful, intense, potent emotion, and like an electronics around you start to fail and glitch, right? Uh, so I think that aspect of it is like highly charged, and like people might get into the idea of like, well, Robert Monroe and the Lelouch and these beings that feed off of energy, right? But what I'm saying is, I think that when you get into like a point of highly charged emotion, it is going to be either it gets the attention of, or it opens you up to non-physical realities, uh, and these other entities either take note of you, or you're able to take note of them, or something in between. Um, so I've been through all different kind of phases in my life, and I my earlier experiences may have to do with early childhood trauma. Um, I had experiences that later on in 2007 occurred. Arguably there's some trauma there. Uh, so yeah, there's definitely some kind of relationship between trauma and experiencing the extraordinary. And I I don't know the exact reason for that, but I have, those are some of my speculations.
Yeah, I know, like for me personally, like I said, if I've experienced great loss of something traumatic, for example, one night I was not trying for something to happen. I want to be clear. I was just doing what I normally would do. So something would happen in life. I got to go up this weekend to Maryland's. That's just what I'm doing. That's where I'm going. Those are my people. I'm going anyway. So I'm there, I'm sitting, I'm meditating. And I remember meditating, and then just all of a sudden in that group, seeing different colors or seeing a lot of purple light, just for me personally, just something I've noticed. And when I do CE-5, when I go into a deep meditative state, I will see this purple light all around me. Now, it's not brain damage. I've had people say, maybe your brain. I'm like, no, it's not that. It's,
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it normally during the day. You know what I mean? It's nothing like
Yeah,
that. But
right,
when I'm in
right.
a deep meditative state, I will see a lot of purple light for some reason. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm like, I don't want to pin it to anything because I've learned through like meditation, right? You see something, okay, you're observing it. Don't get fixated. Just let it see, let it drift through, and then get back to the meditation. But I've seen these things are different colors, and then seeing the craft or seeing the objects in a group setting for me in these traumatic states or after these traumatic events, I think it was refreshing because if I was alone, and I was seeing these things and saying to somebody, "Hey, I saw da 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 da. Well, what happened? Oh, my aunt just died, or this or that." And they're like, "Yeah, right, But no, no, no.
Yeah.
I was with 20 people. We
Yeah.
all saw this thing together, and I felt, just me personally, some sort of healing or a better feeling after that. Okay, it's just something that felt good. It was refreshing, like a warm blanket on me. And whatever, it works. Now, I wouldn't recommend somebody who has no experience, no background in this running out and doing CE-5 after losing somebody.
Right, right.
This is after
Agreed,
doing
agreed.
CE-5
Yeah.
for like 5, 6 years. You know what I mean? And then these things unfolding, not right away. This didn't happen right away, but Greer would tell me like, don't force something. Let these things unfold naturally, kind of like a flower, you know? And that's how these things would just come. I want to be clear. I'm not directly trying to let me make forth this to happen. Like, no,
Yeah, no,
just
no, no, no.
yeah, you've got to be careful with that because then if you force it, right? Or it does happen, you're going to be forcing it every time, trying to get that result. And when you don't, that's when you could start to lose it because you're like, it's not as good, it's not here. And it's not that. It's like maybe the conditions or settings are right for it to happen that day. And maybe the next day, they're not. I mean, you know all about that.
Yeah. But I want to pivot a little, and because you mentioned, you know, I guess, what was your first introduction to meditation? And was it the Stephen Greer stuff and the expedition, and or, in yeah, let's start there. Let's
Yeah,
start
yeah,
there.
sure. So my first very basic intro, I took, some yoga classes way back in the day. They had FDNY sponsored yoga or whatever. I'm like, oh, let me just go. And they're like, we sit and meditate. And I'm like, but there was like women that, it was all women. It wasn't firemen. I'm like, wait, it's for families of firemen and firemen. There were no guys there. I was the only one, of course. But I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, this is interesting. Then a couple years later, I remember coming across a psychic medium from Long Island, this guy from Merrick, Robert Hansen, and I had a very profound experience with him. Right before I met Greer, okay, my grandmother had passed away. And years prior to that, when my grandmother was alive, we'd watch Unsolved Mysteries, and we kind of made a pact like, basically, if you pass away, whatever happens, give me a sign. So whatever. Years down the road, she passes, and then I get that sign. I'm with my mom at a restaurant. This psychic is there, gives me some sort of contact experience, whatever. So I'm like, I track the guy down after, and I remember meeting him, and I'm like, how do you do this? Or how does this work? And he's like, it's all through meditation. You got to quiet the mind, and in silence, the souls can come. And I'm like, that's interesting. I find that interesting. I don't know if I could do that. And he's like, he says to me, he goes, you have the gift. And I'm like, bro, do you say this to everybody? What do you mean the gift?
Yeah.
I'm a firefighter. That's crazy. Come on. And then I remember telling him about Greer. I'm like, what about Dr. Stephen Greer? And he's like, just be careful with all that UFO stuff. Okay. A lot of it's BS. And he's right. I do agree. A lot of it is nonsense. He goes, if you go too deep with that, you can get really drifted away. He goes, but no matter what, if you stick with meditation, he goes, it's going to help you. It improves people's lives. You can help to quiet your mind. He goes, but just be careful with all that UFO stuff. So right at the mix of all this, right? I meet this psychic. I'm going to meet Greer. I go meet Greer. I come back and I'm like, I need to do something more. So that's when at this point I track down this psychic. I get a reading and then I started training with him. And the training was you go every Saturday morning and you meditate with a group of people. And then from there, I'm sitting in a room meditating for a few minutes. And then he goes, all right, now that your mind is quiet, you're starting to quiet down. It's never silent. I want to be clear. You can't silent your mind. No, you're constantly thinking. Everyone is. So, but you quiet it down through meditation. And the psychic that trained me, he practiced Japanese Zen Buddhism.
Okay.
So
I was gonna ask, what kind of meditation were you guys doing?
oh yeah. And this guy, same thing. Have been doing this for 2 decades. So I'm not learning from somebody on, TikTok,
Yeah, yeah,
nothing like that. This is hardcore, bro. This guy, his dad was a retired NYPD detective. No one in his family was psychic. It just kind of happened to him one day, whatever. He got sober, 4 years into sobriety. He wakes up and he's connecting with the other side. But he
yeah,
said, I never had anything to do with this. It's not my world. So I found it interesting, coming from a civil service background. So I'm like, let me just listen. The guy was really strict, Irish Catholic. He goes to church every Sunday, sits in the first row still.
yeah,
He's hardcore, man. So I'm just listening, 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 and started recording my training sessions. I still have them
yeah,
from back in the day, 2010, way back. And I'm just listening about this meditation. But through that, I'm like, wow, for me, I'm starting to think if I meditate, right, and I'm connecting with spirits or souls or whatever this guy is claiming, and Dr. Greer is claiming through meditation, you can connect with UFOs, extraterrestrials. What if it's all like in the same realm somehow? What if there's no separation? I'm just thinking that at the time, but I'm
yeah,
not asking anyone because still, I don't even want to bring that up to somebody. I'm just thinking for me, and that's where my journey on all of this, James, I do believe personally, it's all connected. And that's
yeah,
what all this stuff they're talking about now, they're getting there, they're going there.
yeah. So, why don't you talk a little bit more about how, your convergent your journey of convergence from, you went you had you met this gentleman, and you also went to the Greer training. You're doing meditation and you're having contact experiences, but also you have this psychic faculty opening up.
So, and we talked about before about your your training, or you're doing meditation, you're having loss, you're having things happen in life. And this is where I get a lot of this, stubbornness or thick-headedness with this stuff. I'm very strict with it because my teacher told me, he said his mother passed away, and in an hour he had to walk on stage to 1,000 people. He goes, and I went on stage. His mother just passed, and he went on stage. He goes, because he goes, my mother would have said, you better get your ass on stage, or
Yeah.
So I'm like, whoa. So having a loss, you still got to go and perform. Or, I'm like, oh my God, So he's told me over the years, his nephew and people he lost, and he had a big event to do, and he goes, because there's 1,000 people I can't let down, and if you're gonna do this work, there's a big responsibility that comes with it. So I was like, this is next level. Same thing. This is next level. So whenever something would happen in life, I just stuck with what I was doing. Okay, wake up and meditate. All right, you go to work, fire, blah, 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 blah. So instead of doing something negative, right, meaning somebody dies, instead of going out and, drinking yourself to death or isolating or doing whatever, there's nothing wrong with going and meditating or getting together with a group of people that you love and trust. What's wrong with that, right? So
Yeah.
I started to see, as I'm a fireman. Dad's a fireman still at this time, right, guys? I'm working with the way that guys would deal with trauma and stress. And a new guy, what do I do? Do I hang with the guys? Do I go out drinking all the time and do all this stuff? And I'm like pulling away from that. Kind of like I'm still doing that, but I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. You know what I mean? I don't know, I'm just getting drawn to this other thing. So I'm literally almost living a double life. I'm in the firehouse, not telling anyone about what I'm doing outside of work, not even the Greer stuff. Told
Yeah.
like one guy, and then he told everyone at work.
Yeah.
So I was like, how
Yeah,
it
yeah,
goes. They're
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
you went
yeah.
to a UFO retreat, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. Now I don't care, but back then I was like, oh, this is serious, man, and I don't want to get made fun of this. And so I never talked about it. I used to read books at night in the firehouse, but then I'm like, I don't even want someone finding this. And then they
Yeah.
created the iPad, which is great. But before then,
Yeah.
you had to bring the book to work itself. So if someone saw contact, they'd be like, bro, what's this? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it was really uncomfortable. I had a lot of uncomfortability through this. But anyone that's on this journey, the people I've met that have been on this 20, 30 years, you all go through something like that. It's never like peaches, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
That's part of waking up. You're like, am I gonna keep staying in this wheel of the same stuff and just do what I'm supposed to do and blah blah blah? Or am I gonna fully submerge myself? And I didn't fully submerge at first.
Right.
It kind of happened to me, got forced on me, but yet I directly was responsible for it. Meaning, I'm training, going to the firehouse, doing my 24s, my days off. I'm trying to read people, meaning I'm training as a psychic, and then on my days off, the medium would tell me, find people to read, practice on them, neighbors, friends, people you trust, and then it'd say, hey, do you have a sister or a cousin or someone that's open to this? I would just want to try, because if you know someone directly, they might, it may not go good, or they might just say, oh, you know that about me, but find somebody you don't know directly. So I started doing that, and I did that for years. So I'm doing that for years, training as a psychic, not as a job, just doing it on my days off. So for 12 and a half years, I was reading people just for a side job that I'm not getting paid for, basically. So
Yeah.
why? Because I took it so serious. Okay. And this is such a big deal. I'm like, I need to make sure that if I ever do that professionally or whatever, I need to be ready. And I respected it so much. I just really wanted to refine myself. So I'm doing it on the weekdays off, on the weekends, not telling people at work. And then eventually I'm at a reading. So the guy, Robert Hanson, that was training me, he was doing a big reading of like 300 people. And I go there and I'm sitting in the front row, and a guy taps me on the shoulder that I work with. And I'm like, he was like, what are you doing here? And
Yeah.
he goes, I saw you talking to that guy. You know him? And I'm like, that's it. Now it's out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so I'm like, yeah, I'm training with the guy. And they're like, oh, you do that shit? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, yo, could you could you ever read me, bro? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, of course, man. No, so like,
Yeah.
you never know. Some people are cool with it, some are not. But still, I don't want this to get, fully out. I'm trying to contain it, right?
Yeah.
Trying to contain this thing. The years are passing by, right? 2013, 14, 15. And in the meantime, too, as I'm training in meditation, continuing to do CE-5, I'm also having experiences that are unbelievable. I don't know if I ever shared this last time I was with you, but basically right after Christmas, like 2015, we're on the way to a fire. Now, just before the fire comes in, I'm on the third floor of the firehouse. I never told you this story, right? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm in the third floor of the firehouse looking at the city skyline. It's just after Christmas. It's like dead. It's like the dead of the night. It's after midnight. I'm looking out and I see a ball, a golden orb, whatever, just gliding, which is
Yeah.
nothing out of the ordinary at this point now. You're
Right.
talking years into this. So I'm like, all right, cool. So all of a sudden, I got this feeling like we're gonna go to a fire. I just got this feeling. I don't know, intuition. It might just be from coming from being a fireman, whatever. So as I'm going to, go downstairs, I start to smell smoke, and then the alarms go off. Boom, fire. Blah, blah, get my stuff. Going to the fire. We're hearing reports of people trapped. Smoke on all the floors, fire extending. They're having water problems. They're having problems hooking up to the water. The hydrant's frozen. So it's on. And there's people inside, right? So we get there, we're getting our stuff off the rig, and all of a sudden I look and I see an outline. So see this little quick outline. This thing happened very fast. I just saw this little outline. It was like a Chinese sparkler on 4th of July. That shh, like that, but it was like purplish little outline. But I heard the voice of my grandmother say, "Andrew, don't go in there." And then she's gone. And I'm like, grab my stuff. We get to
Yeah.
the front of the building, and I'm like, oh shit, what do I do? Oh my God, don't go in there. I have to go in. That's my job. Oh my, all
Yeah.
these thoughts are coming through. We're outside the building. The chief comes over. He goes, ladder 119, go on the top floor. And he walks away. Thank God he walked away. He walked away, and there was a probie next to me. He had the orange pumpkin patch on his helmet. And there were guys behind us, about three, four in my company. I turn around and go, hold on a second, wait. And now I'm thinking, you never ever say that. You'd never disobey a direct order, ever at
Yeah.
a fire. So, people could die. All these things can happen if you do that. However, safety first. So if anything you see unsafe, you listen to that. So I say to the probate, I go, just watch. And 30 to 40 seconds later, fire blows out of every window on the fourth floor we were going to go in.
Yeah.
So whatever that experience was, whatever happened, if we had gone in and done our job like we were supposed to, we probably all would have got killed. So, and if I had not been meditating, training as a psychic, whatever, doing all this stuff, and something like that happened, I probably would have disregarded what happened. I
Right.
wouldn't know, I wouldn't have known the heck was that. I would have just kept going. But I knew doing this for years, whoa, some sort of phenomena or something has happened. I need to pay attention to that. And I did. And I remember after guys are like, bro, how did you know what was going on? And I go, my soul spoke to me, okay? I said, if anything ever you pick up intuitively, anything comes to you, you trust that, okay? And they, most guys, they just brush it off and go back to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's that. So we all made it out, right? That's all that matters. But that did happen along the journey.
Yeah. Well, and as to what we were speaking to before, again, that's a highly charged, like emotional incident, right? Maybe that also had something to do with tapping into that faculty. And yeah, you ended up uh, in the New York Post, I believe, right?
Yes.
So tell
So
tell us
we're
about
getting right
that.
there.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear, same thing. I did not contact any newspapers. I never went to the news. Hey, no, 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 because I don't want anyone to know. Okay, I'm trying not to get that out like that. You know what I mean? I never even thought that would be possible. But I'm sitting on the beach one day, and just before this happened, so right, I'm doing interviews, I'm talking to people, and I meet a lady named Mary Rodwell, and she was a lovely lady in Australia, right? And she's like, "Oh, you need to talk to a geneticist. There might be something with your DNA, blah 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 blah." To make a long story short, I contact Dr. Gary Nolan, who was lovely. I reached out to him. Hey, I'm having these weird experiences. Can you help me? And he's like, you're not crazy. I've heard this story before. Basically, is it in your family? And I'm like, yeah, people have had experiences before. It's not anything new. And he's like, that's real interesting. We think that there's possibly something in the DNA of people that have had these experiences where you are having these experiences and the others, or the extraterrestrials, the beings, whatever it is, the phenomena is like aware of that. And it works like a two-way thing. And he said to me, he goes, in your brain, there's another brain. We call it the antenna. And through meditation, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, somehow this antenna gets like activated. And these beings, or this phenomena, or whatever, through these different states that I talked about, these beings will appear or attract to these certain antennas or people that have these antennas. And it's like a two-way receiver. And at that point, I'm like, wow, so wait, I can send and receive like what's going on. It's not just like these UFOs are coming or whatever, and it's a two-way thing. And now I'm talking to a scientist about this. He's like, yeah, I'm like, that's really interesting. So I had an amazing experience with him that was very helpful. So I talked to him, talked about it publicly, wasn't, withholding anything. I wanted to get some reassurance that it wasn't crazy because at this point, I couldn't go to work and tell the guys at work, things that were going on. This is next level. And Dr. Nolan said to me, he goes, listen, if anyone gives you a hard time, they break your chops, just say to them, I have a very interesting, awesome life. And it's too bad. If you can't accept that, too bad. But I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And that was the best advice he gave me. And he said, if anyone hounds you or comes after you, he goes, just ignore them. That'll drive them insane. And that has done a lot for me over the years
Yeah.
because I don't want to go to war and Twitter war with there's so much
Yeah.
nonsense and
Yeah.
this and that. No one's perfect. No one's an angel. Sometimes people say things. We all make mistakes. But overall, I had a great experience with him and the people that I met through him too. And he had relayed my experiences to other people in his circle, Kit Green, Jacques Vallée, all that circle, all those people. I highly respect them. And I had nowhere to go at that point. I didn't know what to do. And if I didn't find him and get that reassurance from, a PhD guy at Stanford, I don't know where I would have gone with this. I don't know. I didn't have resources. However, right after that, boom, I did an interview, and then someone was listening to the interview at the New York Post, and they text messaged me, we're dropping an article about you tomorrow. I'm like, what? Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
Tomorrow? Can you give us a comment? I go, can you send me a copy? What are you talking about? Who are you? I
Yeah.
didn't recognize the author. So I was like, what's going on? And I looked the person up, and all the previous articles they did were hit pieces on
Oh,
firemen and
wow.
cops.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, dude. Now, it's serious because I don't want to lose my career. I don't want to go to a psych ward. This is
Yeah.
serious shit now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about contacting UFOs and angels and all this, like if somebody takes this the other way or whatever, they could be very concerned for my well-being or whatever it is. I don't know what can come from this. I have no idea. I didn't want it to be like this. So I called the FDNY press desk, told them everything. I met Greer. I told them everything I just told you, everything.
Yeah.
And they said, we have no problem with what you're doing. On your days off from work, you're helping people. You're doing psychic readings, you're making contact. You're not even charging people. Like, are you kidding me? Like, we need more guys to do what you're doing. We got you, don't worry. They called the Post and said, don't run the article, leave it alone. The Post said, no, he works for the city. They have a right to know.
Yeah.
And it was like, why? Like, but whatever. So they ran it, and it was a curse at first, I thought, but now it was the greatest blessing ever because the people I have met since then and the journey I've been on, I couldn't tell you when this happened that it was going to be great, but because I didn't want it. But everything I wrote in the article, if I had said it with my mouth, yes, it happened. And I want to be clear, there's some weird things in there, but when you make contact, there are weird things that happen that you can't explain sometimes, and you're trying to decipher why am I seeing an image or an outline or a face or whatever? I don't know what this means. And for the average normal person, they just say, oh, that guy's psychotic. But if you're in a contact circle, you go, yeah, there's strange things that happen, high strangeness.
Yeah. There's another term that they were calling it at the CIA, phenomenology. And I
Yes.
remember they had said to Grant Cameron, this is a phenomenology problem. So
Yes.
that's an interesting word as well to use for, because it's not just the phenomenon per se, it's this whole phenomenological. experience and transformation.
Yes, that's a guy at the CIA that I know, Ron Pandolfi, Dr. Ron Pandolfi
Yeah,
said to
yeah,
me, he goes, Andrew, we have a phenomenology issue or whatever. I'm like, all right,
yeah.
whatever. Okay, cool. We'll call what you want once again. And we'll get into it, but what they're talking about now with the psionics and all this stuff, if you go back to the basics from day one with Greer, like everything he talked about from the press club, everything they're going with now, if you go to the basics of Greer, it's all there. Like to me, it's all there since day one from 2001. People are talking about and going all these directions now, but go back to the basics, listen to what Greer talked about. All the basics, everything is it's easy, you know what I mean? It's right there. People just get crazy with this. And when I was personally going through being in the news, I did not want that in my that juncture of my career because I wanted to explain what I was going through, and they just wrote something about me and didn't let me comment. And I didn't think as a journalist, if anyone is a journalist listening to this, if you just write a hit piece on someone and you at least don't contact them and show them what you wrote and say, hey, what do you think about this? To me, that's poor journalism.
Yeah.
That's all I know. And they were just going to do that. And then I fought with them. And then they wrote back to me and said, "Oh, I spoke to my editor and we feel that, you deserve that, the right to share your side." I go, "I have no comment." Like, get out of here.
Yeah, yeah,
I have
yeah.
nothing to say. You're not even showing me what you wrote. So how can I comment? And in the article it says he had no comment. Yeah, because I didn't see what you wrote. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to comment. And I had to call an attorney, Ray Hernandez from the Free Organization.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I told him, and he goes, Andrew, no comment because we don't know what's going on. We don't comment. Don't go there. And then I found out too, uh, yeah, the attempt at first was, I feel personally, was a hit piece or something negative, and then it got edited, and then with the final piece, I'm fine with. It's fair. It's whatever. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Um, to pivot from there and to discuss more psionics, CE5, uh, but also your work with psi. What practices have you done over the years, and which ones did you find beneficial? The Zen stuff, the CE5 stuff, transcendental meditation. We were just on a podcast together. We discussed the Monroe Institute. So, once you get into this, you kind of are like, let me check this out. Let me try this. Let me see this. And you keep what works, right? And they all have
Yes.
a benefit. They all teach you different things about consciousness and about yourself. So, what are some practices that you've experimented with and that you even stuck with to this day?
So the Gateway Voyage Open Exercise. You can watch it on YouTube. I play that as soon as I press play. It is like instant. Still, I play it and bang right away. They're coming. Okay. I have it every night. Every night I'm outside, I play that and whoom. And I will get several. So usually it's several objects or a bunch crossing or something, strange, weird, odd, unique for years when
And
I
you've
play
you've
that.
posted you've posted some videos, right?
Oh
Where
God. Yeah. 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 Of course.
where can
Yeah.
people find those?
Yeah, if you go on Instagram, my Instagram, Psychic Firefighter, Andrew Radziewicz, my Instagram, YouTube, but Instagram and TikTok pretty much have everything.
Yeah.
Everything's out there. And I want to be clear too, my footage was analyzed by MUFON. I was in a show last year called Close Encounters Down Under in Australia. It's on my pages, right on my Instagram. They took my footage, analyzed it. All I did, I just no meditation, no guided, nothing, just walking through the forest at night. That's it, nothing. Just walking.
Yeah.
And these things just came, like just going on a walk, blah, 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 blah. So you don't need all the bells and whistles, but they're cool and it's fun.
Yeah.
And if you get a better result, great. That Monroe Institute, instant for me. Okay. I don't like too many bells or literally too many bells or whistles during me. I don't like too much of that. But the Monroe Institute, the syncing, I like that. I feel in that it active for me, it activates some sort of state for me personally, almost like trance-like or a very calm, relaxed state where for some reason they, whatever they are, right, whatever it is, whatever you want to consider they are, I call them, I don't think they're negative. That's just me personally. Some people say they're demons. Whatever, bro. Call it whatever you want. I'm just they haven't told me to do anything that a demon would say to do or to harm or hurt. Nothing like that. So, whatever. It's been positive and it activates. There's this interface when I play that an interface with the brain where whoom, there's this instant contact. Okay. I used to do a lot of Greer's meditations over the years when I was first learning. I rarely listen to them anymore.
Yeah.
His crop circle tones, though, if I'm setting up, sometimes I'll just play the crop circle tone just to get warmed up or set the stuff up that I'm using. But I go with that gateway meditation. A lot of times I just do complete silence, okay? Or even if I'm just with you, or I'm with the guy that interviewed us last time, Stuart Cardo, he'll come to my house. Just us talking outside, no tones, just us talking about this stuff stirs something up and they appear. Stuart's been to my house, and the first time he came, we saw over 20 objects in an hour. Now, I'm just saying, if you want to say some of those are satellites or whatever, they're not all satellites, bro. It's not 20 coming in an hour, dude, over my house, directly over where I am. That's
Yeah.
BS. Now, we use the charts, we use the trackers. Of course, those are the debate, of course. But when something is flashing on and off and doing all the weird things like we know that that's not any of that stuff. And you know from doing this long enough how to stimulate this stuff. For me, those are great primers talking about the phenomena. I'll be in my house sometimes, just talking to my wife or my kids or whatever, and I'll get a feeling. I'm like, get the camera. There's something
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
literally, you go outside and there's something there, or it's coming soon, and bang, it zips right over where we look. Not like, look, whoa, whoa, where'd the thing go? Get the laser. No, no, just right there where it is, bang, every time. So I think that for me, I formed like a bond or a relationship where all the other psionics and all these dog whistles, and I'm curious about all these things, but I don't even think they're necessary. I think the best tool is the vessel, the physical person, you, or the best portal in the world individually. If you're listening, you, by training yourself, by doing the work, you by yourself will attract anything better than any bell or whistle. I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong,
Well,
but
a few things to what you said. One is like some of the best experiences happen when like when you're like forming the circle, so to speak, right? Like when everybody's getting together and because the intention is very potent at that point.
yes.
I think as far as the bells and whistles, it's like it's good to do that training, but with consciousness and non-locality, it doesn't mean it's going to happen that second, right? Like you can do you have like an amazing 3 hour meditation and you're doing all the bells and whistles and all that. And the activity is like, okay, but then like the next week you're walking, you didn't do anything. And then you
Right.
have this incredible, amazing experience. But, was that a time lag? Was that just a time that the phenomenon or non-human intelligence was the best time for them to respond? So there's unknown factors in that. So I think the bells and the whistles and all that is good conditioning. It's good training and it's good preparation. But the most potent experiences are mostly spontaneous, right? Like they happen on their own. But when you're doing the training and the bells and whistles and the practice, those are all setting the conditions and removing the obstacles. But that doesn't mean that's exactly when all the action is going to take place. Again, we could do an event at Maryland's and we're spending like the whole day and night in meditation and CE-5, but later during that week, you get out of your car and then just this incredible, you have a feeling, you look up and all this, the connection and the activity begins, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it,
And you're also by doing that, that sometimes you're priming, you're laying
right.
the groundwork for because my 15 years of doing mediumship work, what this has taught me, okay, the other side, this is what they've expressed to me, right, through images. Basically, everything we're going through life, if you pull film out of a 35 millimeter camera and expand it, all of these things are like that, but they're all there at once, okay? All
Yeah,
of these things,
bro.
all
Yeah, yeah,
these,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
all there. It's one giant thing, but so you could say, oh, go back to childhood. Oh, go back to here, but it's all right there. There is
Yeah,
no 15 years ago now, right? It's all right there. All of these things,
yeah,
boom, are there. So when you're making contact and you're like envisioning, right, where you are, you're showing them where you are, showing where they are, and you're envisioning making contact, it might happen in 5 minutes or it might happen in 50 minutes, but you're seeing it through and you're seeing the whole tape play out. So just remain patient. But if you go, I got 5 minutes, bro. You better appear. Good luck. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
That's probably not going to work out good, but this has taught me, like life, have the patience, right? Have this patience. Let these things unfold. You might do all of these things one day, and then, you come back, or the next time you come out, bang, it's right there. But all the other things you've done have led you to that moment. That's like life. Everything you're doing is important. It's like progress, not perfection. All of the things you do on a daily basis lead you up, build you up to this grand thing. But it just might take a little bit of time. If we went outside and in 2 minutes they appeared every time, it'd get boring. Like, all right, it's too easy once again.
Yeah, yeah,
And the
yeah.
human mind, why don't they just land on the White House lawn? Because most people would get off their couches if they did, watching Netflix, go outside and go, oh, cool, and go right back inside.
Yeah.
I believe that. Why? They've been admitting to the whole world everything's real and no one really cares. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it wouldn't matter if they landed. They've crashed. Vegas, wherever they're going all over this happening forever. I try not to attract too much attention either. That's why I don't like the bells and whistles. I don't want any visits. I don't want anyone showing up my house. I don't want to see any men in black. I don't want to get
Yeah.
probed.
Yeah,
Haven't
yeah,
had
yeah.
anything like that yet, knock on wood, and I don't want that. So, once again, if you're flashing and doing all this, someone's going to be watching, dude, especially if you're getting some sort of contact with some weird stuff. So I like to just sit on my little balcony where I live, do my contact, and I'm good, bro. It happens. And I think this interface, right? This little connection that is happening, I think there's a direct correlation with the craft in the sky and our departed loved ones. For me personally, bro, I am convinced. Why? People that come to me, I'll sit with them. We'll do readings outside sometimes at night. I've done it with Stuart. I've filmed this. I'm reading him, connecting him with his loved ones on the other side, telling him about childhood. I told him exactly where he got married, the exact name of the place he got married. And I've only known the guy since I've lived here. I don't know him my whole life, nothing like that. And this is years ago. Told him exact spot and everything. As I said, the place where he got married was getting married, and this is in the past. A craft came, boom, right on film. So I was like, once again, that's for me, that's yes, like a validation, for me personally and him. He's like, holy crap, man, something appeared as you said something that was true. So for me, it's like setting up another layer of validation, whatever these things are. And they're listening, they're paying attention. And when you're in the right frequency with yourself or the person you're with, I think they just like to kind of say hi, give you a little reminder there.
Yeah, and I was gonna say because when you get into that conversation, there's there's all different uh, theories, right? I mean, there's discussion. I know Whitley Strieber has talked a little bit about it. I think maybe even Christopher Bledsoe. But then there's kind of the UFO conversation. It's like, oh, we're containers for souls, and so there's so many different directions that can go. So, in your experiences and based on your impression, what is, you know, what is that connection?
Like, what do I think it is ultimately, you mean?
What, at least, what is it? What do you, what's your impression on the connection between, I guess, spirits, life after death, and the UFO phenomenon?
I think there is extraterrestrials with great intention, and then there's interdimensional beings. So, what you would think of reading about in religious texts as demons or whatever they are that they're trapped or they're in between. They can't take physical form, but they have the ability to shift in and out and appear or trick us because something to me that is peaceful, loving, advanced 500, 1,000 years down the road, an extraterrestrial species, I feel they would have moved past the point of probing and harming one another because if they didn't, they have nukes if they're advanced than us, right? So they would have nuked each other and they wouldn't exist. So if they have moved past that point, they are living in cosmic peace. That's my at least experience with this. Same things with our loved ones. I think they want our best intention. These interdimensional beings, though, that is like the movie Monsters Inc., where they
Yeah,
feed off the negative energy and
yeah,
they want to see us go in these weird states. And they're talking about it in the Bible. It's not aliens, but unfortunately, they have the ability to appear as a loved one or an ET or a horse or a bull, the Virgin Mary, or some weird stuff. And that is we're doing a daily practice. I haven't seen that. Like, I want to be clear, I haven't seen that, but the stories I hear, a daily meditative practice can help to decipher the nonsense because if you're not doing a daily meditative practice or something like that, training that muscle, that antenna, that brain inside the brain, and you're having experiences once every other week or once, once in a while, this thing could be wild, crazy, because you're just consuming Netflix and then, having weird experiences. You're going to think it's War of the Worlds, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas if you're quieting the mind, training with I'm just saying my experience training with a psychic, training with a contact group, and then seeing all this other nonsense and this craziness going on. I personally can separate that. That's just me. I have not been abducted. I have not been taken. I have not been probed. I could have had a movie deal if I said I was probed. I said, or I'm like, bro, no, thank you. I'm not interested in that. I'm telling what has happened. Why? Number one, I have children, okay? And you do not lie to your child. You have to tell them the truth. And I would never lie to them and say something happened that didn't. Okay, you got to live with that, and I don't want to pass that nonsense on because they'll suffer that karmic, BS that you do. So you got to be honest. Tell your story. It is what it is. And I want to be free. I don't want to be controlled anyway. But a lot of people out there sell stories or Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky, even after he said that's all nonsense, that's all Hollywood. That didn't happen to him. So you can get sucked up in that circle for money or not even know it or whatever. You got to be very careful. You got to discern. I don't know his background, I don't know what he was doing, and I'm not judging him. I'm just saying I learn and I listen from what other people have been through. And I'm just very skeptical when I hear those things. And I know the meditative practice and the people that taught me these meditative practices they believe in what they're doing. The guy that trained me as a psychic, that train all this stuff. Oh, he believes in what he's doing. And he's very strict. And Greer too. Was a very good teacher I had learned from way back in the day. I haven't seen him since, but I took those principles. I take what I want and I leave the rest. And I'm just very strict with this stuff where I've not got wrapped up in that. No one in my contact circle, no one I've ever met with one on one, done a reading or anything with, no one has ever said to me after, oh, I got taken, nothing. And if they did, they probably would make a TikTok about it and said, that got psychic, did the blah, 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 blah. But no, because I think that's a lot of in your mind. Okay, it could be in your mind. And if you're going through something bad, these interdimensional beings, they can latch on to people. Okay, but if you're not doing daily meditative practice or something to work on yourself, yeah, you could get pulled away with this stuff. You got to be very careful. I mean, you know about this stuff too, James.
yeah, yeah. But as a note, I don't want to undermine people who have had an experience like that, a
Sure.
negative one or even abduction experience. I think, there's a lot to this that we don't know and understand completely. And I would definitely want to say, just as we're here sharing our positive experiences, I want to keep everything open on the table and have compassion for people who have had negative experiences in one way or another, because that is a whole conversation. But earlier you mentioned the crop circle tones. And what I think is interesting about that nowadays is, and for people watching and listening, Dr. Stephen Greer has been using these crop circle tones that I believe that they recorded in the field in 1992, and I think that Colin Andrews was the one who got the recording from like an NBC reporter or something who's out in the field.
Stonehenge? Was it in
It
Stonehenge?
was it was over in the UK.
Somewhere
I
out
don't,
there?
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and there was a crop circle, and some reporter went out and recorded it, and somehow I believe Colin Andrews got it, and then Stephen Greer was using it. And I hope I'm not botching that up. I could be. My friend, the Hermetic Penetrator, will correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, but these crop circle tones, CSETI, and that probably still, but especially in the early days, would take these crop circle tones that were recorded in a crop circle and broadcast them out with a radio. So, you're doing the meditation, you're doing the vectoring using remote viewing, this is what Stephen Greer calls coherent thought sequencing. Uh, some people are signaling with lasers, which we don't recommend because it's dangerous, but hey, some people do it. And broadcasting these crop circle tones. This is what was C said he called the contact trilogy, and you're trying to use all these modalities to interact with non-human intelligence. And the funny thing about the crop circle tones, I believe that this similar thing is going on with Skywatcher and what they call their dog whistle, right? I don't think they're using Stephen Greer's or Colin Andrews or whoever's crop circle tones, but I believe they're using they called it like a mechanic dog whistle. Um, I forget the exact term that they use, but I believe they're broadcasting some kind of signal that attracts the phenomenon, which is a great development, and I hope they share that. They have their second video coming out this Monday. It's going to be April 7th. Skywatcher episode 2 is coming out. I'm looking forward to that. Jake Barber has said the dog whistle works 100% of the time. They've gotten objects like Tic Tacs and the A craft, and they have uh, footage from broad daylight and other footage. So, but just to get to that, the dog whistle, they call it the lure. They're using some kind of mechanical device. I'm guessing it is similar that they're broadcasting some kind of frequency. And in the UFO literature and research, some known, others lesser known. Somebody was posting on Twitter about it or X that John Ramirez had said something about 3 gigahertz, and there's some ranges out there where there's speculation that when there's a UFO encounter, especially even like the military encounters, they had recorded specific radio frequencies. And Jake Barber, I assume, learned this through the Legacy program in attracting the phenomenon, other than using he was calling psionic assets. Now the new term they're using is neuromeditator uh, out in the field to interact with the phenomenon alongside of this, the dog whistle. So it's, they're using these similar modalities that just seem to be refined, but also, trial and error through the UFO Legacy program. So I just thought that was an interesting note that, the crop circle tones are akin to that dog whistle in a sense where they're using this technology, radio frequency or whatever it might be, and, alongside of the meditation. That was just an interesting note. Um, but Andrew, you had mentioned in our last discussion we did on the Universal Disclosure podcast that I believe you mentioned in there you're going to be in a docu-series coming up.
Yep.
So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to be in a docuseries called Contact. It's a three-part series, the different realms, paranormal realm, divine realm, astral realm. I'll be in all three parts. They will be taking my testimony, psychic readings, UFO contact, the whole nine. There's all sorts of experiences in there. I don't know all of the people that are in yet, but you can go. They have a website. If you go online, if you go follow me, I've posted everything. It's on my Instagram pages. It'll start being shown from April and on at the film festivals over the next 6 months. And then in October, I believe it'll be fully released on Amazon Prime. Sharon Rowland is the director, and she made an amazing film prior to that called Alchemy that won 7 awards. So, I mean, this is great. Her first film won 7 out of 10 awards. I mean, amazing. So she contacted me, and she was lovely to work with. So yeah, no problem. We're going to be doing that, and that's going to be pretty amazing. That's she's from Australia. She's Australian born, so it'll be a lot of the film fests here and then even outside. But it's good to show the mix. For me, when I talk about UFOs, I end up talking about psychic phenomena. When I talk about psychic phenomena, I talk about UFOs. But for years, James, no one wanted to merge the two. It was two separate entities, and now finally, Jake Barber, Ramsey, all these guys, and I know some of these guys too. They are on board. They know, they know what's going on. They're totally aware that something is stimulating, or wherever these craft are coming from is that space in between. And that is something that I get into in the Contact series. I believe in my heart, why do I believe that UFOs and our loved ones are in that same space? And how do we prove this? Or how do we get the best evidence possible, right? Our loved ones are not going to reappear in their physical form because they're not physical anymore. They're past, okay? When they're past, they're in an energetic form, okay? This is my understanding. When we call out to them, craft appear, high strangeness appears. So to me, from doing this for 15 years, there's some sort of weird connection going on. And the psionics program and Skywatcher and all these things Where do you think they're getting their knowledge and information protocols from? Experiencers. Okay, they're not getting them from textbooks. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that might be some background, but Gary Nolan, Jacques Vallée, Kit Green, all these scientists out there studying this stuff for years, they know the answers are with the experiences. And like anything, take what you want, remove the personalities, get the good core together of what people are getting positive results with, and stick with that. Let's remove the nonsense. I will go out and make contact with anyone that's open to this, that wants to do this with the right mindset. I don't care about your background, what you look like, where you're from, because I run into a burning building and save you, and I'd go out in the field and make contact with you. Okay, that's how I roll. That's how I do things.
Yeah.
And if we could have that same mindset in this field, which I think is essential, if we can come to that peaceful understanding and at least get together for contact and put our, opinions to the side, they will understand and they will respond. If this dog whistle is 100% effective, imagine all the CE-5 teams could get it and do it all over the world. How many craft would come?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would be incredible. That's
Wow.
that's why I hope. I mean, I hope it's not kept proprietary, especially
Yeah.
especially with such a claim. I can.
100% a big claim. Okay.
It is, and you know, so far in everything, I believe Jake Barber seems to be completely credible, uh, and the people that have vetted for him as well. And again, he's making claims, but there are dates, meaning it's not like in the future you're going to see. They have already collected data that they're going to share, and they're trying to share data and present it in the way that they think is responsible uh, in real time. So we didn't have to wait like a year for them to, or 1 or 2 years for them to go out in the field and do a documentary, so to speak. They're getting the data, they're collating it, and they're trying to put it out there fairly quickly. Again, rather than they could have just said we're going to produce a documentary. It'll be out next year, but no, they're doing it pretty much in real time, which is pretty extraordinary. Um, I'm
Yeah.
optimistic about it, and again, I hope they share uh, some of their trade secrets, so to speak, and I guess some stuff probably coming from the UFO Legacy program, but
I remember
also,
I was just going to share that I know with what they talked about too, about some things they're filming in like a category. They don't know what they are. I
yeah,
have tons of footage over the years of them. Like, I don't even know what to call this.
yeah,
It's not a craft. I don't even know what this is, but the way it's moving, it's stringy. It's like weird stuff. Almost looks like an animal. I don't know what to call these things, but it's nothing that you can classify. It is so strange. I'm glad that he is speaking about it because I've been talking about it too, and people just like, oh, it's a bird, it's a bat. I'm like, no, it's not that. I don't know what this is. That this thing is strange, just making the weirdest movements. He's talking about it. So once again, you get a professional or someone out there with the right reach to talk about these things. Me and you, people like us that have been in these circles, have seen all these strange things over the
yeah.
years. We know these exist. We just, yeah, the more the merrier and the more credible people to share about these things. I'm all for it.
And for people watching and listening, they hear all this, they hear us talking. Uh, both of us are, let's say, fairly experienced. If somebody is watching this and they're convinced, like they want to get involved, they want to participate, they want to have their own experience, what would be some tips you would give people that want to have their own experience?
So I always say you don't have to go pay 5 grand and go meet Greer, but he's old. He's not going to be around forever. And once he's, ascended to the other realm, that's it. And you and I can say forever, wow, we trained with him. So for me, if I have the means, financially, whatever, to get to the source and see them in person and observe and take in what I can, that's what I recommend doing. Find someone with a lot of experience. Don't do it, just wing this on your own because like I said, if depending on what's going on in your life or the people around you or a partner or a person, they may not be on board. They may say, get out of there, you can't do that. But find people that have a lot of experience. I know Costa Macaris has a free app that you could find people all over the world. Type in your zip code, find a local contact group. CE5 app. There's all sorts of apps out there to find others. Find a CE5 group, a local CE5 group. There's ones on Facebook. They're all over. If you don't like one, go find another. Don't just get discouraged because it's one. You know what I mean? You gotta find what works. You might not like that person or whatever. Play around, go around, see what works, find what's out there. Do a lot of research, okay? And yes, there's people that are frauds out there. They're like that's in regular life.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing in ufology. You're going to get that. So the discernment will come with time through, quieting the mind. So learn a daily meditative practice. This is what I recommend starting out. Transcendental meditation, silent meditation, whatever, something. Experiment with that, play around with that. Do a daily meditative practice and do that every day because you will increase, enhance, and pick up more contact experiences. If you're only making contact once a month, good luck. I just don't know what's going to happen. But if you're doing it every day, meditating, priming your brain for that, and then meeting others, like-minded others online that are doing the same thing, get together with one or two of them, even in a small setting. Hey, what collectively can we do? And then see what happens like that. I've done that too over the years. Just found like one or two people. Chris, our buddy Chris from the contact group from Staten Island, he came over my house in Long Beach all the time. And he sat in the audit, me, my partner, and him. Boom, we'd have contact all the time. Amazing. Just three of us, right near
Yeah.
an airport, right near JFK. So you don't need 20 people. Just one or two like-minded people that are serious and doing the work and meditating. That's all you need. The bigger the group, the more problems and the more things to go wrong and get crazy. It's good for networking. It's good for meeting people,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But personally, just a couple people that are like-minded, that are strict in doing this, that's what you want to find. Just you will find them. You will find them. You will attract them. And you're also going to find who you don't want to be around. That's part of the journey. It's not going to be perfect.
Yeah. And for people watching and listening, what's your take on this is a bit of a pivot, but what's your take on how everything is unfolding in the public discourse now? We have more whistleblowers coming forward. We went from talking about David Grush and crash retrievals, reverse engineering programs, which that conversation's still going on. But there's a shift to even like further, I guess you could say now to the psionics. So I mean, speaking of the disclosure, transparency, and discourse altogether, what are your thoughts on where we're at right now?
They know that they're reaching a point, right? There's going to be a point where the dog whistle or something is 100%. And anyone, not even a contactee, can go out and give it a whirl or whatever, and this happens. So they're trying to hold on to this thing and, set up a narrative or a protocol or control with this, whoever it is, the powers to be, the elite, whatever you want to call it. So if you stick with the experiences, right, I feel you'll get a pure intent with a lot of whistleblowers. Just remember this, they have authorization to speak and share what they can. And then they are told other things you cannot talk about. Whereas experiences that I meet are pretty open about whatever they've gone through. There's no, I signed an NDA, bro. I can't tell you that. You're not going to hear that from me. You're not going to hear that from me because I
Yeah.
would never sign one. Same with, I don't know, James, same thing.
No.
We've talked
No.
openly about
Yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah.
I would never get wrapped up in that. So I'm just very careful when I hear about people that can't share things or NDAs or they were threatened or this or that or if anything like that happens, go to the authorities. Protect yourself. Okay, don't ever take that serious. Anyone ever harm? I don't care who it is. Anyone ever threatens your life or your safety, you go report that. Okay, your well-being is more important than this subject. Okay, so that's number one. And I think that out there, you're going to find even more coming forward. They're trying to take control of this, monopolize this. And if you stick with the experiences, though, that pure intent will always come. The craft, the ETs, I think that they'll know the intent of who's transmitting the signal. So whoever wants to get wrapped up in that other world or whatever, if they have the right intent, they'll have a great experience. If it's the not right intent or they want to weaponize it, don't I want no part of that. I'm with the experience side, but it's almost where there's this great divide. And I know that's happening in the White House, the Pentagon. I know people on the inside there. Most of the members of Congress are experiences. They have had contact. I know that for sure. I can tell you that. They've seen craft, they've interacted with it, they've seen weird things on fishing trips or whatever that they cannot describe. That is why they are all over this too. Okay, so that's saying a lot, right? I think it's ever happened in the past. So we're right at that point where that'd be great if they could all come forward one day, right? And share what really happened and just say, I don't know what it was, but something weird and whatever. So the next generation up, right after them, the next people in powers, they're going to be very open about what they've gone through, and it's not going to be like that. So I think that real shift is about to occur, and we're witnessing something beautiful. We're not at the point of, cosmic peace or anything. We're not there yet, but people like us took it on the chin or whatever. We're laying the groundwork, but our kids, next generation, they're going to keep pushing the right thing.
Yeah, and I know we can keep talking for hours, so we're gonna have to set up another talk,
Of course.
sometime, but for people watching and listening, where can they find all of your stuff?
Yeah, if you just go to my website, thepsychicfirefighter.com, that has all my links. Or if you go to Instagram, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. You could message me, email me. I also, through, like I said, I've had people that have had horrible contact experiences, abductions, all sorts of things. Hundreds come to me over the years trying to sort out and make sense. They want to get a reading, connect with their loved ones, make sense of any weird stuff that had happened. I also am all into numerology, astrology, that is all intertwined with all of this as well. It is a very fascinating thing I've learned over the years that directly correlates with everything. If you look me up, though, you could see my videos, my reviews, reach out to people that have come to me, see what their experiences were like. If I could help you in any way, great. And if there's somebody else that's better fitted, fine. Just say this: be careful who's out there. There's a lot of people that have come out of the blue now, right? With all these insights and this and that, and there's some scams out there. So find people that have a long, consistent track record with credible people, okay? That's what I go with. Who are you? Who have you trained with? Who have you been around? All right, I'll go in that direction. I just don't take a chance on anybody that's out there. Their information, they might have a good intention, but somebody they're communicating with or something else may not have the right intention. So years, 20, 10, 15 years of this helps to discern and weed out more of that nonsense. So I like to just stay around well-seasoned old farts like me and James.
Yeah, so I'm gonna link all your stuff in the description. But again, great talking about all this, and I'm sure we'll talk again sometime soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All the best.
All right, take care, Andrew.